So look, I've been running campaigns for about 15 years now, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched a DM, myself included, completely faceplant in session 1 because the lore was either non-existent or so convoluted that players just glazed over. You know that look, the polite nod, the cool, while they're secretly thinking about what their character's gonna order at the tavern? Today I want to talk through something I've been using lately, kind of a lore audit checklist. Not to make your world perfect, because, honestly, perfect worlds are boring, but to make sure your campaign world is functional, that it doesn't accidentally contradict itself, confuse your players, or bore them to tears before they even roll for initiative. And here's the thing, this isn't about going down some exhaustive list and ticking boxes like you're filling out a tax form. This is about asking yourself a few key questions that'll save you from the most common pitfalls. I'm going to talk through some of the big ones, give you some examples from my own campaigns, both the wins and the absolute disasters, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better sense of whether your lore is helping your game or quietly suffocating it. Let's start with the big picture stuff. Does your world actually feel like one thing? One of the first questions I ask myself when I'm building a campaign is, does this all fit together? Is it internally consistent in some obsessive world building way? When a player hears about the factions, the cities, and the conflicts, does it feel like it belongs to the same universe? I ran a campaign a few years ago where I had this gritty, low magic setting with desperate mercenaries fighting over scraps in a dying empire. Very mud and blood, right? Except I also include this one faction of flamboyant sky pirates with enchanted airships who are basically doing Treasure Planet vibes. And every time they showed up, the tone just shattered. Players didn't know if they were supposed to be scared or if this was suddenly a Saturday morning cartoon. The lesson? I would say tone matters the most. You can have variety, and you should have variety, but there needs to be a through line. If your setting is desperate survival in a cursed wasteland, then your comic relief can't be a bunch of bards throwing confetti. It can be gallows humor from exhausted soldiers. It can be a merchant who's so dead inside that they've started joking about the apocalypse. But the main takeaway is, from my experience, it has to fit. And here's a related question that saved me a ton of headaches. Is there an element you feel weird about? Like, you keep explaining it to people and it just doesn't land, or you feel yourself getting defensive? That's usually a sign it doesn't fit. Cut it. Seriously. I know you spent 3 hours on the lore for crystal monks or whatever, but if it's not working, it's not working. Kill your darlings. Your players won't miss what they never knew existed. Are you accidentally contradicting yourself? This one's sneaky. You create a setting where life is supposed to be hard. People are starving and the kingdom is collapsing, resources are scarce, all the classic stuff. But then in your first session, the players walk into a tavern and it's packed, everyone's drinking, there's a whole roasted pig on the table, and nobody seems stressed at all. Congrats. You just contradicted your own setting. If things are supposed to be desperate, show desperation. The tavern should be half empty. The ale should be watered down. Maybe there's one guy in the corner trying to sell his dead brother's armor because he needs to eat. You tell the players, hey, you're basically nobodies just starting out. Cool. Then, session 1, they're tasked with stopping an ancient demon lord from awakening. If the stakes are world ending, then the world should be acting like it. If the players are small time, give them small time problems that can grow into bigger ones, like getting involved with the conflict between the baboons and the gnomes. And don't mix your timelines carelessly. If you mention the old king in backstory, but also reference the current war he's fighting, players are probably gonna get confused, thinking, is he dead? Is he alive? Did you forget your own lore? Clarity is your friend. Now, can your players explain what they're actually doing? This is a big one. If I ask your players right now, what do you do in this campaign? Could they answer in one sentence? We're trying to stop the invasion. We're trying to hunt a serial killer in the city. We're broke adventurers trying to get rich and not die. If they can't give me something that simple, then your campaign might be too vague, and I would assume that vague campaigns lose momentum fast. Players need a clear, actionable goal in session 1. Not explore the world and see what happens, because that's not really a goal, that's more like a vacation. Give them a problem they can solve right now. Then, layer the bigger stuff on top as they dig deeper. And rewards. Don't forget about the rewards. Players need to know what they're getting out of this. Are they getting money or safety or leverage over a powerful NPC? Are they getting a reputation? If your campaign doesn't offer at least one of these things clearly and consistently, players will lose interest. We play these games to feel like we're doing something. Give them something to work towards. Factions are huge for this, by the way. Every major function in your world should offer something the players might actually want. The Merchant Guild has money. The Arcane College has knowledge. If a faction exists but offers nothing useful, why would players care about it? Why should your players care about the conflict? Let's say your campaign's central conflict is a war between two kingdoms. Great. That's another classic one. But here's the question. Why should the players care? And because it's happening is not an answer. Neither is because one side is evil. I mean, sure, maybe one side is evil, that's totally fine. But you've got to give it a little bit more. Like, what does the side want? Why do they think that they're right? Even if they're wrong, even if they're monsters, they need to have a reason that makes sense to them. Otherwise, they're just cardboard cutouts and your world feels shallow. The best conflicts are the ones where both sides have a point. Maybe the Empire is oppressive, but they also keep the roads safe and the bandits in check. Give your players a reason to hesitate, to argue, and to actually think about which side they're on. And consequences. Players need to know what happens if they fail. If they ignore the plot, does the villain just wait around for them? Or does the world get worse? There should be a ticking clock, even if it's just something in the background. The longer they delay, the stronger the enemy gets. The more people die, the fewer allies remain. Make an action actually hurt. I'm just going to say it. If you introduce more than 5 new names in your first session, you've already lost half your table. I don't care how cool your pantheon is or how intricate your noble houses are. Players can't retain that much information while also trying to figure out the rules and their character and what's happening right now. I learned this the hard way. I once started a campaign with a 10-minute intro where I name-dropped 3 gods, 4 cities, 2 kings, and a secret society. By the time I finished, my players were staring at me like I just explained tax law. One of them literally said, "So we're in a tavern, right?" Start small. Introduce the immediate world first. The town they're in, the NPC who's hiring them, the monster causing trouble. Once they're hooked, once they care, then you can start layering in the gods and the kingdoms and the ancient prophecies. But not before. And here's a radical idea. You don't need to front load everything. Lore is best discovered through play, not dumped in a prologue. Let them find out about the shattered war because they met a veteran with a missing arm. Let them learn about the god of death because a priest shows up to bless a corpse. Make the world come to them, not the other way around. Does your world change without the players? So this is the acid test. If your players did absolutely nothing, just sat in the tavern for 10 sessions, would the world even notice? If the answer is no, you've got a problem. Because that means your world is static. It's waiting for the players to be the only source of action. And that's pretty much boring. It makes the campaign feel like a theme park instead of a living world. The best campaigns are the ones where things happen whether the players are involved or not. The war continues, the villain's plan progresses, all of a sudden you have baboons going after all the gnomes. If the players ignore the plot and go do their own thing, they should come back to find that the situation has changed. Now, it doesn't mean you railroad them back on track like you're running a Dragonlance campaign, it just means that the world is dynamic. If they decide to ignore the main quest and go hunt treasure instead, that's awesome. But when they come back, maybe the villain has already taken the city. Now the quest isn't stop the invasion, it's liberate the city. See how quickly that can change? Because the story adapts, but the stakes remain. This is what keeps a campaign feeling alive. The players aren't the center of the universe, but their choices matter because the world is moving on without them. So that's the audit. Not every single question, but the big ones that'll catch most of the common mistakes. And look, I'm not saying your world needs to be flawless or even halfway crafted. Some of the best campaigns I've run had weird quirks and contradictions, obviously, but they worked because the core was solid. The tone was pretty much consistent. The players knew what they were doing and the conflict mattered. If you want the full checklist, all the nitty-gritty details, I've got it up on Gumroad, but honestly, if you ask yourself these big questions, you're already ahead of most campaigns. Make your world curious. Make it conflict-driven. And for the love of God, don't name dump your entire pantheon in session 1. Good luck, and happy DMing.